What's up, everybody? We're back with another episode of the Street Parking Podcast with one of our members here doing the vault with us. This member that I've got with me for this episode, I'm super excited to get to know because I don't know him very well. But he is one of our 1,000 Club members. He's got his 1,000 banner. He's been a member for a very long time, coming up on 5 years, and has been training this way as long as I have, since 2007. So super interesting character, has a lot going on in his own life, and because of his consistency that he's had for so long, has a lot to share with all of us as well. So we're here with Ryan Adams. How often do you get a Bryan Adams joke?
A lot. It's really hard to.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, so you're still like in the age group where Bryan Adams people knew.
Yeah, and I try really hard to enunciate my name when I say it, because I'll say, I'm Ryan Adams, and they'll say, Bryan Adams? And I'm like, no.
He was so good, though.
Yeah. So I get Bryan Adams. Sometimes there's another artist named Ryan Adams as well, so I get that sometimes too.
I mean, both your first and your last name are pretty common.
Yeah, they provide pretty good cover for Google searches.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Dang, I need that because I don't have that. Ryan, where do you live?
I live outside Philadelphia in Bryn Mawr.
Okay, and you are a managing director for a hedge fund.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It just means that I guess I'm amongst the more important people at the hedge fund.
For those of us that don't really understand, what is a hedge fund?
So a hedge fund it's really just an investment manager. So we're investing funds for teachers' pension plans and various institutions, as well as like wealthy individuals and things like that. We're on the more conservative side of things. We're in defensive credit. So that means that we're investing in primarily in bonds. So a company will issue a bond.
So you're not like Mark Cuban on Shark Tank or anything like that.
No, we're not. We're not investing in early stage companies. We're investing in more mature companies that are using debt to finance their capital expenditures, their growth. Maybe even like shareholder returns or something. Okay,
you said that it's a pretty stressful job, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's taken a long time to get used to, but when you think that, we have over $4 billion of assets under management, and when you're making an investment decision and it's like, do you want to buy $5 million of this bond, right? And it's like, man, $5 million that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
Especially like when you come from like a more humble, like modest background, it's like, wow, like that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that takes a little bit of getting used to, but like you get over it pretty quick, and you just start thinking of it in terms of like, just ones and zeros at the end of the day.
It's monopoly money at some point.
Yes.
Kind of. Did you grow up in that area in Pennsylvania?
I grew up in northern Vermont. And my whole life, and then went to school in Maine, where I met my wife.
And you were swimmers?
We were both swimmers on the Colby College swim team.
Is that well known?
Colby College?
Yeah.
It's
I don't know anything about college swimming.
So Colby is part of the NESCAC conference, which they're kind of known as like the baby Ivies.
Okay.
So they're not like the Harvards and Yales, but they're
close.
They're closer.
The cousins.
Yeah, they're smaller liberal arts schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what were your events? Because I'm sure we have plenty of members that used to swim. What were your events when you would swim in college?
I was a sprint butterflyer.
Okay, nice.
And so I probably would have been amongst the best 75-yard butterflyers, but there was no event for that. Unfortunately, I would push off the wall at the 75 turn, and my arms would just totally fail. And
So not quite. Is there a 50?
there's in the NESCA conference, there's a 50, so I was pretty good at that.
Okay. I was going to say you needed it to be longer than the 50, but shorter than 100.
Basically, yeah.
And that you would have been world champion.
That's right.
The Michael
Yeah.
Phelps of the 75.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So I swam and I played club water polo too.
Oof. See, I have a theory about swimmers and water polo players even more so. They're the most mentally tough and borderline crazy people that I've ever trained with.
Yeah.
Because first of all, swimming is so monotonous. So that you like the stamina, even way more than running. Because long distance runners, they're running outside, and so there's not that they do pay attention to it, but there is stuff to look at. The scenery changes.
You have to be a bit touched in the head to swim back and forth.
Yes, and
two
I don't know if
walls
the
for 2
chlorine has
hours.
something to do with it, just that much time and those chemicals or whatever. But I've trained with some swimmers, and they are just insanely like mentally tough.
There's definitely a mental fortitude that you develop over time. Yeah, and like some of it's like the number game, right? So, you know, you'd be swimming intervals against the clock, which is very much like you know, this sort of interval training. And it's like, well, can I go faster? Like how can I keep up this pace for 10 100s or like whatever 10 50s, whatever it might be, right? So I don't know.
Do you still swim?
I don't.
Like when was the last time that you swam for exercise?
Probably 12 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like? Do you enjoy it still, and you just don't have time, or are you just like? I've had enough.
The time is hard. The time and access to a pool is the hardest part.
Because it's not like you can go into your
I don't have
takes planning.
To put a 25-yard pool in my backyard. It's a little
Maybe if one of these funds hits, right?
Yeah, right.
Then you'll.
Yeah, I'll put an endless pool in my backyard.
Right. Does your wife still swim?
She doesn't either. Yeah, the kids are getting into it. So that's fun, and they're still on the younger side. So
yeah, you have 3 boys also.
Yeah.
How old are they?
6, 4, and 2.
So yours are all exactly 1 year older than mine, because mine are 5, 3, and 1.
Right. We're time shifted.
Whew. Okay. So the oldest one, the 6-year-old, he's swimming. Like, does he take lessons?
No, he's actually on a swim team.
How did you find us? Because I want to get them into that. I never did. Julian and I are both capable of swimming. Like, we're not going to drown, but we're both really bad at it and slow. And
we had, my in-laws have a pool in their backyard, and so we're always in that pool in the summer. And I found that some of the flotation devices that they sell now are not supportive of learning how to swim.
They make them float too much?
They make them float on their backs, and are too buoyant, so that you don't actually learn to swim. So we found this product that kind of like lets them learn to swim, and you take out some foam over time, and they can keep kind of like the more of a swimming form.
What's it called? Because now everybody's going to ask us in the comments.
I think it's called the Confidence Jacket with a K.
Okay.
But we found that to be pretty successful in helping them learn how to swim.
Nice.
And then we found this fairly intensive, like 2-week swim camp near us.
Okay. Did you take all 3 of them, or just the oldest 2?
So Tyler, our oldest, he started doing that camp maybe a couple years ago. So he might have been like 3 or 4 I guess he was 4 when we started it. And they kind of like, it's one of these camps where like you learn over the 2 weeks to jump in the pool, turn on your back, and like float. That's like the biggest goal, so that like if a kid were to fall into a pool,
they're
not at risk of drowning, right? It's like they know how to float, they know how to get back
We
to the
took
side of
Knox
the pool.
to that, the ISR, I'm sure you've heard of.
Yep.
When he was like a year.
that is some crazy stuff too.
Here's the thing. I have a belief in that, but it kind of traumatized him. It worked.
Yeah.
To where now he doesn't just ever want to go swimming. So maybe it's keeping him from drowning because he has no interest at all in swimming pools. And we had to like get him back into it. So we haven't done it with our other 2. I would if we still lived in California where there's pools everywhere all the time, then I would definitely be like, yeah, you got to do some sort of swim training for even like your infant, like your toddlers.
Yeah.
But Knox is the only one that we did it that young with, because he hated swimming until just recently. After that, he was traumatized.
Yeah. So the next step is they learned how to do like side breathing, and
nice.
Tyler was really good, and shockingly so for us, because we weren't able to go in, just the pandemic, we weren't able to go in and watch. We would just like let them go in, and then we'd like get them out the other side.
Yeah.
And we just didn't realize like how good he was, and so once we found out, we like looked into.
He's got the genetics.
Yeah, I guess it's genetics. And he's been great, and we're trying not to push him too hard.
Right.
We want him to enjoy it first, but like get kind of some more of the competitive element, and get some energy out, which is always important too.
So they sleep.
Yeah, that's right. And Max, our second, he actually started the same program, did pretty well with that, and then he just wanted to join the swim team like his older brother, so
of course.
he's trying so hard to keep up in those practices, and they swim for like an hour, and they're doing a lot of yards, and it's quite impressive. And he's a 3-year-old swimming with probably 5 and 6-year-olds. Tyler's a 6-year-old swimming with like probably 7 to 9-year-olds. So it's definitely a proud parent moment.
One of the things that we've noticed, and I'm sure this is just like, well, yeah, of course. And maybe it doesn't always work out this way, but it sounds like it's working out that way in your family too, is the oldest child, if you can get them on a path of certain things, of cleaning up after themselves or wanting to exercise or, whatever, the second one really does like mimic a lot of that behavior.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And it's not that he tries to be exactly the same as him all the time, and of course we still have to spend effort on him as well, but like some stuff it's much easier to explain to him or teach him because he's just copying.
Yeah. And they do it earlier.
Yes, way earlier.
Almost to like our fault, where like we're expecting that he can do things.
It's not us that's expecting it, but Knox. Like even this morning, our 5-year-old was saying to our not even 3 yet, he's 3 in 2 weeks. He was like telling him that he needs to color inside the lines only on his like they were both coloring on like coloring book type pages, and he was like, you have to stay inside the lines, and I was like, no, he doesn't. And you don't either, but if you want to, that's fine, you can stay inside the lines. But he's just just coloring all over the page, and it's him, it's the brother that's like, this is how we do it.
Yeah, it's funny, they're getting into working out in the garage too, and Tyler will yell
correct
at Max. Yeah, be like, no, you're doing it wrong. You have to swing the dumbbell over your head.
Yeah. Same thing.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right, so your wife is a member too.
She is. She just passed, I think, her 1-year anniversary.
Okay, so she's a newer. You were first.
Yep. Yeah. So.
How did you? People are going to need to know how, because you've probably seen it on the Facebook group or on Instagram and some of that stuff. I know you're not super active in social media, which we'll get to in a minute, but how you've been a member for almost 5 years, and now 4 years into it, or 4 years into your journey, she joined.
Yep.
How did you do it? Because the people want to know how I get my spouse to participate.
Yeah. So a long time ago, before street parking, I was doing CrossFit, and really wanted her to try it out because I thought that she would like it. She tried it out for a little bit, and I think maybe she stopped when we were trying to get pregnant.
Okay.
Because I think it was like a little bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I started street parking, and the same sort of thing. It's like, I think you should do this, yada yada yada, and I just realized that I couldn't push her into it. It had to be like her decision. And she was riding the Peloton anyway,
okay.
Right? So it's not like she was doing nothing.
Right.
So I was like, it's better to find your thing and do something that you enjoy, and do that for physical activity. And if you decide to do street parking, great. Because like I think it's wonderful. I think the programming is fantastic, and the options are like so plentiful that you can find your thing even within street parking. And then she joined, and she's started doing some of the workouts And like she'd send me a picture while I was at work, and she'd be like, she was like writing on my whiteboard, or or take a picture of the dumbbells or whatever, and so I was like, encouraging it, because it was great that she made that decision that she needed to get like more strength training in, or do something different, and she's really like taken hold of it. I think she was probably more excited for me coming here than I was, and actually my 75 hoodie was small, right? So order a size up if you're ordering your hoodie. So
she stole it.
No, she didn't steal it. She because it's older. I had been using it to work out in.
Yeah.
So when she got her 75, she's like, well, do you want to order a larger sweatshirt, right? So I ordered the larger sweatshirt, and now that she's like kind of like a little bit more hooked on it.
She's bummed that she's not.
I think she's a little bit bummed that she doesn't have one.
Okay, let's see if we can do something about that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we'll see if we can do something about that while you're here. Maybe you could take her a surprise.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. So do you guys ever work out together? Because it sounds like she works out during the day when you're at work, and you're a nighttime fitnesser.
Yeah. So I think that she prefers not to. We have the option to do it on the weekend. We've done it a handful of times. We actually did. I think there's a workout for Project April that's coming up that we did together. But she prefers not to, because I do have the Instagram account, and I don't think she prefers to be.
She doesn't want to be on it.
And then I don't think she even wants to see how I am relative to her. So she prefers to kind of be like, in the background. So like sometimes she'll exercise at the same time, but she's outside the garage away from me,
funny.
Potentially even doing a different workout.
Okay.
So more often than not, it's separate by ourselves.
I bet she's not giving herself enough credit. Anyone that was a collegiate swimmer.
I agree.
She's
a lot faster and stronger.
What's her name?
She's Samantha Rose. She's Sam. But
Sam, you crush it.
She didn't want to.
You need your own Instagram account, Sam. We want to see Sam's fitness.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's gonna happen.
Well, that's really cool. And then, so you do have an Instagram account where you post a lot, but you weren't doing that the very beginning.
No.
You were a member for about a year before you started posting. What pushed you to want to do that? And then what is your flow with it now?
So I felt like I wasn't interacting with the community, and I never really post in the Facebook page.
Do you read the Facebook page?
I do read the Facebook page.
I'm kind of like that on the Facebook. I go in phases with the Facebook page, where if I'm super busy, I definitely look at it and read it, but
there's a lot of stuff to learn from the Facebook page.
Yes.
There's like a gamut of emotion too, right? There's things that that really trigger your emotions, like happy and sad.
Yes.
Which is really fascinating. Like what people feel like they want to share to however many 40,000 people.
Strangers,
right?
yes.
Strangers, absolute strangers, but they feel more comfortable sharing it in this semi-public group than they do speaking it to their friends and family.
It's true.
So people are bearing their all in this group. So you have the happy and sad emotions,
and the funny. There's a lot of funny stuff that happens in there too.
Right? And things to learn from, right? So I do search from time to time, just for tips on whatever it might be, recommendations, things like that. So the Instagram account, I started it because I felt like I wasn't interacting with the community, and on Instagram there's still an element of anonymity that you can kind of hide behind. And at first it was a private account, and I would just go through, and I figured the best way would be to just search for the key, and so I searched for the key and just started following people, as many as I could, thinking that.
Can you search the emoji? I've never tried that.
Search
oh
the emoji.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just went through and followed as many people as I could, and some of them I look in to see like, oh, is this actually a street parking person?
We're gonna start getting brands and stuff now that just put it in there.
Right. Just to get followers.
Yeah.
And so I got a bunch of followers back, and like right away it was, it was pretty incredible. Meeting people, communicating with people, all very positive. And so I post all of my workouts. Now they kind of forced me into the reels at one point.
Oh.
And so I had to like learn how to.
They didn't force you into any dancing yet, did they? Just here on this trip.
Not just on this trip. Yeah.
Okay,
no dancing yet, but I told Peter,
Sam's gonna lose it if you start dancing on
right.
Instagram.
Peter and Tina, I warned that I'm gonna start invading their corner.
That's so funny. Okay, so you post a lot, and now you have some interaction. You actually said that you feel like you interact with some random people that you've met on the internet, sometimes more often than people that you know in real life.
Definitely. I mean, I'm an introvert, and maybe borderline antisocial, I would say. So I don't keep in touch with a lot of my friends anyway, and I definitely interact more with the street parking community than I do with old friends like new and old.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason that people do share so much in the group, and why what you're saying happens, is in that group, one thing that you know for sure is that you do have some shared values with the people that are in that group as far as like what you're trying to do with your life, or at least with your health and fitness. And so I feel like maybe people are like, well, these are my people, so they're going to get it, and I can share this, where most people don't necessarily even have that, even like with their own like siblings or people that they work with or anything, where they're all kind of in that same mindset.
It's very similar to being a member at a
Yes.
CrossFit box. It's kind of it's a much larger box.
Very big.
But like being here with all the other vault participants, it's you almost feel like you're connected to them, even though I've never met any single one of them, and a lot of them I haven't interacted with even. You still feel connected to them. You feel like you've known each other for a long period of time, because you're all kind of striving towards the same thing,
Yes.
right? Like,
And you've had so many experiences, even just the workouts, they're all experiences, right? That are shared.
yeah.
I mean,
at the end of the day, we're all trying to be healthier versions of ourselves, and we've all taken that step to working out consistently over time. So we share that bond. We share that those similarities.
Yeah. Speaking of CrossFit, so you started CrossFit in 2007, which is when I did. And there was only one other member that we've had that came for the vault, Drew, that started around a similar time, and he was in the military. You weren't military, right? How did you in 2007 find CrossFit?
It was really random. I was working in Boston for John Hancock, and they had a gym in the building, and a bunch of my coworkers had told me about this like CrossFit.com, and they post a daily workout. And
how did they find it?
I don't know how. I don't know how they found out about
Someone's
it.
like military brother or something
probably
tipped them off,
Yeah.
because the way that I found it was I searched military style training, like a Google search back then.
Yeah. So I started going to the main site, and I would kind of like pick and choose what workouts to do. A lot of them at this general gym I couldn't do, because I couldn't do cleans and jerks and things like that.
I mean, I tried.
Yeah, I definitely tried. I definitely tried to teach myself a lot of this stuff, and it wasn't great at first, but I would do a lot of workouts that had deadlifts and like rowing and pushing, like push-ups, and I think like hang cleans and things like that. And I just started getting really into it, and I'd do it on my own. I would do like strict Cindy, like over and over and over again, like probably like once every couple of weeks I would do it again.
Wow.
And then I never got into like the CrossFit box until later on.
Like 5 years.
5 years.
Were you consistently doing CrossFit from 2007 and then you said you joined a gym in 2012. So for that whole 5-year span, were you doing it by yourself?
All by myself. Yeah.
At a regular gym the whole time?
Regular gym. Yeah.
I feel like there was a period where, because I did it at a regular gym for not very long, like maybe 6 months, and then I opened the affiliate because I was already a trainer, and so I ended up opening like a warehouse type like gym. But I feel like now it's normal to see that stuff. But I mean, really,
it was.
People looked at you like you were nuts.
Yeah. And
they would get so irritated with it.
I would go off into the corner. I was using like metal plates to do deadlifts, so it's like clang. I definitely even like felt weird about it too. And like
For
sometimes
sure.
I was like going to, different places in the gym, to grab like random equipment, right? Like maybe like the pull-up bars were all taken, so I'd go to like, whatever the machine's called that you like put your knees on.
Oh yeah, like the one that takes some of your body weight off of it.
Yeah, right. I'd like go and do that and just like take the weights off and do pull-ups over there and just I'd get angry at people that would like invade on like my like 3 machines that I would be like targeting, but that's the kind of when it got to the point where I was like, I moved down to Philadelphia to be with my future wife, and I was like, I worked for a year at a terrible job and didn't have any time to see her or do anything, and once I left that job, I was like, I got to meet people. I like this CrossFit stuff. I'm just, even though it's $150 a month, I can afford it. I can do it. It's worth it to be a part of like a community and to get to know people. So that's how I joined a box and started doing
and for
real CrossFit.
For those of you guys that didn't for those of you guys that didn't try to do this type of training back then, it's not like even if you had the option or that you had thought about trying to do it at home, there was no roguefitness.com in 2000. Like that didn't pop up until like 2009 even.
Yeah.
And even then it was very small. And the reason that they created that was because there was no other place to get CrossFit equipment. Like you had to, and the gym that we owned, we had somebody weld our pull-up rig to the wall, and people would just make it.
Yeah.
You had to make everything, and of course you've always been able to buy dumbbells and things like that, but barbells, med balls, bumper plate, like that stuff was really expensive and really hard to find. So it's not like you could have just done it at home. So you joined a gym and you were a member of a gym for like 6 years, right? Was it the same gym the whole time?
Same, yes. There was it did close in early 2018, and that kind of created like a bit of a diaspora where people kind of went everywhere. And initially, I was like, I have enough knowledge where I can kind of do stuff on my own. And
I mean, you're 11 years in at this point.
So we at the condo that we lived in had like what amounts to like a hotel gym.
Okay.
And so I would go down there and try to do something, and I realized very quickly that like it just wasn't the same. And
where were you getting your workouts from then? Were you just making them up, or CrossFit.com?
I had downloaded all of the workouts that I had done at the gym.
Oh, okay.
From Wodify, and it was kind of like picking and choosing, but there was no rhyme or reason. And
yeah.
So I joined another CrossFit gym that was nearby, but going on at the same time, we were expecting our second kid, and we were trying to find a house, and so that took some time, but it was probably 6 months, and I knew that once our second kid was born, I wouldn't have the time to go and work out after work if I wanted to. Well, if I wanted to A, have a wife anymore, and B, like actually like see the kids, right? So I had a friend of mine from the initial CrossFit gym that was like, I do street parking. I had known that a bunch of them had been doing street parking on the side, and they had joined probably soon after you guys started it in 2017, because they probably followed you guys from
competing
like
and stuff.
competing. Yeah. And And so I was like, okay, like, so the last month of my membership at the CrossFit gym, I was like, like I'll join street parking for a month, see how it works. Still going to the gym when I could, and that kind of led up, to our second kid's birth, and it became very clear to me very quickly that like I could do this.
Nice.
Like, and so my first year of street parking was like either in that hotel gym or in like the loft of our condo, just with like dumbbells.
Nice.
I was using like the empty barbell for thrusters in the loft, for like a wall ball sub. I'd
Okay.
even, like sometimes like use the wall ball like to hit the loft. But the fact that I could maintain the level of fitness that I had just with dumbbells for that year really convinced me, I think, that this was the best programming that I could find.
Were you surprised by that? Like, did you think you were going to lose a lot of fitness doing that?
Yeah. So the big tell for me was I went on a trip with a bunch of these CrossFit friends, and we dropped in on a box along the way.
How long had you been doing street parking exclusively at this point?
It was probably about 9 months.
Okay, so long enough that you couldn't just say, well, it's just left over from what I was doing before entirely.
So
Okay.
basically just using dumbbells. I picked up a barbell and did, I think it was a version of DT. With 155 pounds.
Wow.
And I think it was a heavier version. I might have even done 185 pounds. And it was a struggle, but like everyone was struggling.
Right, of course.
Right. But I could still do it. And I hadn't picked up a barbell in 9 months.
Wow.
Certainly with not that much weight. And I was just using 50-pound dumbbells. And,
Wow.
And it worked. So that's like hook, line, and sinker right there.
That's awesome. So now, what's your setup like now? Do you have like a garage, or you have like all of the things now? Is it pretty stacked, or you still keep it pretty simple at home?
Yeah, I got lucky because when my CrossFit gym closed, they sold a bunch of the stuff. So I bought as much as I could, within reason, things that I knew that I could use once we bought a house. And then once we got a house, I had been looking in the street parking group for what do people buy and like what's good, and then like trying to find the best value. And
Yeah.
And lucky again that I acquired a lot of stuff before the pandemic too.
Yes.
So I
it's
have
got
this
very expensive and hard to find for a while.
Very. So I have this corner of the garage. I was like, this is all I want. I just want this little space.
And it keeps creeping?
I don't want a lot. It doesn't really keep. So I have 4 stall mats. So it's this like
Enough space for a burpee.
It's an 8x12 space, and
Okay.
some of that is commandeered by fitness equipment. So I do have to like move stuff around to make it work sometimes. But I have essentially everything that I could ever need, so that makes it fun in terms of like I just don't feel like doing this workout today. I'm gonna use the D-ball and just
Yes.
do some dirty work, or you were using the sled the other day instead of I think like 200-meter runs or
Yes.
something. I was like, you know what? Like I haven't used a sled in a year, right? Like
Yes.
it's been a long winter, so let's get out and do something different. So it's a lot of fun to shake things up, and even like different movements. Like some days I just can't with the weighted step-ups.
Guys struggle with step-ups so much more than women. We've noticed that.
Really?
So the only workout that I know for sure that I can beat Julian at, regardless, is the 12 Days of Christmas workout that we do every year. And I'm usually ahead of him before even the burpee step-ups, but I remember the first time we did it, myself and my friend Morgan, who is the wife of our accountant that works here for us at Street Parking, they both live in California. They used to be our neighbors. And both of us were fairly early postpartum, and Julian and Brian had been training together this whole time while we were pregnant, everything. And we just smoked them on this 12 Days of Christmas, but it was specifically like the burpee step-ups that they were just like complaining about. And then anytime there's a workout with step-ups, Julian's gotten a lot better, but the guys, complain about it so much more. I don't know what it is.
I've definitely gotten a lot better with it.
There's some sort of genetic anomaly with women in StepUPS.
I can't use the dumbbells, and so I just like, you know what, like the sandbag is great.
Oh, it's so much better.
I'll just put on, and it's totally different, right? Like
100%.
You know, like especially putting it on only the one shoulder, like the stabilization is wildly different in terms of the taxing of the core. So it probably takes me longer to do those, but
you just don't hate it as much while you're doing it.
I don't hate it as much. Yeah.
So you've been doing this type of fitness for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is your biggest piece of advice for being consistent with fitness in general, but especially this type of fitness where it's uncomfortable? I mean, it's uncomfortable. It never gets easier necessarily. It might get easier for you to like get yourself in the mind space to do it, but while you're doing it, it's always uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But how would you help people out with that?
I like to set what I like to think of as like mini goals, right? So like you might have like a longer term goal, and that might be something like, you know, I want to lose 10 pounds, or, you know, like I want to be able to do pull-ups, right? In a workout, right? But in the short term, you're not going to be able to achieve that goal right away. You certainly can't achieve that goal on a sustainable basis right away. So I like to look at a workout and say to myself, what am I going to do today that I'm going to push my boundary, right? And so, you know, if it's a workout that has, let's say that it has like 30 pull-ups in it, and it's a couple of rounds, and it's like, all right, like, well, for me, like, you know, it's like, how many of those rounds can I do those pull-ups unbroken? And, you know, if that's like, maybe that's like 2 rounds, right? And then I know that's going to start to get a little bit dicey. Like, so it may not be the smartest thing for me to do 2 rounds of 30 unbroken pull-ups, but I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to see how long I can do that.
I'm a huge fan of that. Not every time, but like I'm a huge fan of stuff like that.
Yeah, so I've discovered since I'm here that you're the mastermind behind all these unbroken programming.
I think, well, we have been programming some more stuff that requires unbroken, because what I have found is the longer, and you can 100% attest to this, I'm sure, the longer someone does this type of training, the better we get at strategizing it to get the proper score or get in the goal range or whatever, like beat so-and-so, whatever it is that you shoot for. We get really smart at strategizing. And what I love about watching people when they're new to street parking or CrossFit or whatever is how they have no idea how to strategize, and so they just see what happens.
Yeah.
And so I think the forcing the unbroken sometimes takes us back to that, where you would try that on the first round, and then now you're just in it. And so, I mean, I did that with, I'm not going to we can't give away our vault workouts, but with the vault workout that I filmed yesterday, where one of the movements, I maybe could have gone faster if I wouldn't have wanted to do one of the movements unbroken every single time. There's a potential that breaking it up could have made it go faster, but I just had in my mind that I didn't want to do that. So.
Yeah. It's just a goal for that workout.
Yes.
And that's going to make you stronger in the long run, because now you know that you can do that.
It builds
again,
confidence.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And there's only one way to find out. Like sometimes you're like, all right, I'm going to do the first 2 rounds unbroken, and your one side of your brain, the little like angel on your shoulder or whatever, might be like, I don't think that's a good idea. Like then on round 3, this is what's going to happen. Then the little street parking devil is like, no, do it, find out, you know.
Find out, right? Yeah. So
and so there's only one way. And sometimes you surprise yourself, and round 3 you're fine.
Right. That's right.
So.
Right. And so I mean I tend to take the goal ranges at face value, and so this is another way that I look at the workouts, because you're right. Like after all this time doing this type of training, like I look at a workout and I know instantly, like, this is how I'm going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is where I can push. This is where I have to like throttle it back a little bit. You know, but I like to look at the workout and be like, okay, well, like this is the goal range, and these are the suggested weights. And it's like, what is the hardest workout for me that I can still make that goal range, and still make the description, you know, of how the programmer wanted me to feel in the workout. And sometimes the goal range is wide, and I know that it's a workout that I need to go fast. So like I'm gonna not choose the heavier weight. I'm gonna decide that okay, like this is a workout that is meant for speed. So I'm just gonna let it rip. Right?
I love that you do that, because one of the things, again, that we learn as we've been doing this type of training is heavier often is less painful. It's less uncomfortable in certain types of workouts, because you're going to have to break it up. It's going to take longer. You accept that it's going to take longer, where if you look at the goal and it's like each round should take 2 to 3 minutes, you're like, oof.
Yeah.
All right, I'm supposed to go lighter and try to push for unbroken or whatever on this.
Right.
And it's a lot of times when I see people throwing on weight vests or adding weight to it and saying like, oh, I did, but I went heavier, so it took me 5 minutes. Like, well,
Yeah.
I see what you're doing here.
Yeah. I mean, if I throw on a weight vest, it's either because I've been fitness bullied by somebody on Instagram, or because I know I can still make
Right.
the goal round.
Yes, for some people in some situations, it's definitely appropriate. Julian wears the vest more often than I do, for sure.
Yeah. But fitness bullying is definitely a thing, whether it's direct or indirect.
Sometimes Julian's trying to fitness bully someone, like he'll try to fitness bully Caitlin. One time she started putting on a weight vest for this workout that they were going to do, is like the sled and burpees. And I just looked at him and I looked at her. I was like, she does not need a vest. Like the sled and the burpee combo, there's no need for Caitlin to add a vest to this situation.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, thank God. She like takes it off,
Yeah.
So yes.
But this is the part about the community and being part of the community that is helpful, I think, for me. Like I might I might see that Rich, zero proof athlete.
Yes.
I might see that like he used like the 50s, even though like the 50s weren't suggested, and be like, man, like,
gosh dang it.
I kind of want to use the 50s now, right?
Yeah.
Or like, I'll see someone else, being like, oh, like, I'm doing like, I'll see one of the women that I follow, using like 115 or. Or
don't follow Molly if you want.
Yeah, right. And so I'll be like, man, like if she's doing that, then I should be able to use a heavier, like even heavier weight, right? And so like, but that's it's pushing, right? Like, sometimes you need like the extra push to get you more uncomfortable, and it's like getting uncomfortable with
I love it about the street.
Comfortable with uncomfortable.
Yeah, and what I love about the street parking community is there is that, but also if you're like, no, I'm not doing that. Nobody is going to be like, oh, like,
going to judge you.
No, you're just like, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
For the most part, unless you have like a rapport with somebody where you almost expect them and want them to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be, even between Molly and I, because we used to train together a lot. I'll just be like, no, you should use 105 and I should use 95. Like, it's not appropriate for me to use what you're using. You're stronger than me. And there's no weirdness about it. And there's no, like, I don't have to, like, feel bad about myself or anything like that. And I feel like there's a much better mindset around that in the street parking community than the CrossFit community at large.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't know about the men in street parking, but the women, I feel like, do a good job of it.
I think I was talking with DH yesterday about something similar, and essentially it's like with CrossFit, there's like the RX, right? And it's like, so and what I said was, for Fran, right, it's 21-15-9, and for guys it's 95-pound thrusters and pull-ups, and that's like what the RX version is, but like that doesn't mean that everyone should strive to do that. And so what does it then mean? Like, so now like we've developed these like super monsters of that can 21-15-9 isn't doing it for them anymore. So why aren't we looking at it like when they're doing 21-15-9 of whatever 135-pound thrusters and bar muscle ups, right? Like, well, that's their version. Like that's what
it
they
feels
can now
the
do.
same for them as you with 95.
Exactly.
Yes.
So maybe the workout is 21-15-9 where the suggested weight is 95 pounds, but it doesn't mean that everybody has to do that.
Right.
Nor does it mean that maybe it's something that you strive for. Maybe that's like your long-term goal is that I want to do
the suggested weights.
The real Fran, the suggested weights at whatever time, right? But you don't have to do that to be successful.
Right.
And it's fine to show progress along the way.
I think, and kind of like this kind of ties into what you were just saying. One of the things that you said that you really enjoy, and I think is been so important for myself to remain consistent this long, especially with kids and being busy and everything, is this idea of fitness freedom, where it's like, oh, it's not one workout written a certain way, like you're saying, with this is the weight that you almost feel like you have to use, or it's written specifically with a barbell, so you feel like you have to do the barbell. Where our approach is more, hey, here's like a template and a couple different variations that you might, but mix and match them. Do something. You want to push a sled instead of run 200 meters? Push a sled instead of run 200 meters. Still make it take the same amount of time so that you're hitting the intention of the workout. But I feel like if you're going to be consistent for decades, that has to come into play.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be still working out alone in my garage, I wouldn't have believed you. But I think having the 3 options a day, plus like all the other extra programs that you could sub in at or even complement. Like there's so much that you can do, and the point is to work out. The point is to get exercise. The point is not necessarily to do it 100%, 110% every day. That would be great if you can do that. But sometimes you just need to get a workout in.
And sometimes it's like, oh, it's cold. I don't feel like the like I'm just gonna grab my sandbag because the barbell's cold.
Cold, yeah.
Or my kids are asleep and it's quieter. Or, sometimes Julian's like, I don't know, I just feel like doing it with the kettlebells, and that's like not even an option that we put on there, but he's like, yeah, I'll do the thrusters with the kettlebells and the StepUPS with the sandbag, and it looks like almost a completely different workout, but if you broke it down to the movements, it's like, no, he's still doing the same movements.
The same stimulus at the end of the day. And then a bunch of the extra stuff, like throwing in a D-ball.
Yes.
It's almost therapeutic to or a sandbag. It's just it's like therapeutic just to slam something to the ground.
Yes,
like whether it's a barbell crashing or a sandbag, like puffing smoke. Like it's like those like little things that go a longer way. Just to help you keep going and staying like true to yourself.
Do you still find that you improve? Like, have you seen improvements in skills or specific, like maybe it's a mile time or a lift or something like that? Do you still see improvements? Because not because of your age at all, but just because you've been training this way for so long.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are definitely movements that I've gotten better at.
Maybe we need to work on those StepUPS.
Well, StepUPS I've gotten a lot better at using the 50s.
Okay.
I would usually go to the 40s.
Okay, so sometimes you will push yourself to use it.
Yeah,
okay.
so I'll try to use the 50s like when I can, and usually that's like more of the movement that I get fitness bullied into.
Okay.
To use the 50s instead of the 40s. My toes to bar used to be terrible.
Okay.
Like my kryptonite, and those have come a long way. Where like not only can I do more of them initially, but I can hold on to them for throughout a workout. It's still there's some workouts that I get to the end and they just totally fall apart, and I'm doing singles or strict ones and whatever it is to get just finish.
Yeah.
But that's one that I've worked on a lot. Doing some EMOM sort of practice and wall walks. Like I used to not understand wall walks at all. Like why would this be in a workout? It doesn't make any sense. And now I get it, and I'm a lot better at them now. And I think some of it's just like addressing like deficiencies, like having like a weaker overhead and having like orangutan arms and whatnot. It's a harder movement for me physically to do, but it doesn't mean that I can't do it. So I've just worked at it, and so it's like knowing my own limitations. Like I know that I know that there's a workout that has wall walks and or toes to bar that, like, you know, there's going to be a point in time where it's going to get real and it's going to be a struggle. You know, so like those are workouts that I tend to, you know, stay at the suggested workout. You know, but there are occasionally workouts where I know that I can do that extra wall walk, or, you know, the extra couple wall walks, or like the more toes to bar. And those are the, like, you have to pick and choose, like,
Yes.
So there are spots where I know I can do that extra challenge, and, you know, or I want to see if I can do it, and still get in the goal range with a workout that has the movements that I don't like or I'm not good at, because that's the only way that I'm going to get better. The next time that there's a workout where, like, even the suggested workout is what the extra challenge is for those specific movements. So that's where I see I get better. You know, and then it's really just the pushing yourself when you're alone, and finding somebody in the community that's going to motivate you to push yourself to test your boundaries and see why you're uncomfortable with it, and if you can feel more comfortable with that the next time, and just to keep doing that, keep chipping away, because that's how you're going to get better. That's how you're going to improve.
I think a tip that works really well is you can do something that I always say, why did I do this? It was so dumb. But I also, you know, in reality, I'm grateful for the community, because before this year's vault, for example, I said, I'm going to do all the vault workouts with extra challenge. Now, I am heavily involved in the programming of all these things, so I'd seen them, but you don't really process it. And then it's like, when it comes up, it's like, why did I tell everyone I was going to do extra challenge? Because now everyone knows.
Yeah.
And if I post that I didn't, again, it's not like people would be like, hey, like, calling me out. I mean, maybe to, like, in a joking way, they would call me out, but, like, I think calling your shot sometimes like that, not over the top. So what I would never say is, I'm going to do every workout that I do in 2023 with the extra challenge, because I know there will be days that's not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to go that hard or whatever. But just the one workout a week.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
like the one that you guys watched us do yesterday. I was like, gosh dang it, what? Like every vault that we filmed, I'm like, why did I tell everyone I was going to do extra challenge? And I've seen people too, or they'll be like, this episode is being recorded during Project April, where people are like, I'm going to use the 30s. Or I know Julian was like, I'm going to use the 50s. And they say that whether it's on Facebook or on Instagram or to somebody, and now they're held to it. I think doing stuff like that can be really helpful too. Like, but you can't just decide it on your own. Like, you have to tell at least one person.
Yeah, and so, like, for me, I am committing to finish the 52-week endurance program.
Oh, that one's one that I've been avoiding.
Me too. But not because, like, I don't enjoy it. It's just like, you know, I always get FOMO in the daily WODs. And,
yes, it is hard.
And it's what's challenging about it is like maintaining the right paces and whatnot. But, like, I committed to it. I've said on, like, my Instagram page that I'm committing to it. So now, like, I even though, like, I don't really want to every week, like, I feel like I'm obligated to, like, share that photo that I've done it. You know, and then even like within the endurance workout, like, I chose the rower because,
I mean, you're tall. So
because they'll keep me honest.
Yeah.
Right. Because, like, running, I felt like I could cheat. You know, like I could throttle it back a little bit more.
Where the row pace is, like, right in your face the whole time.
The rower pace is right there the whole time. I mean, it's kind of like swimming too, but the pace is right there. I know like where I should be for those splits, and so that keeps me honest, so that I know that I'm doing it the right way. Whereas, like, if I were running, like, I have less. I don't know where I am in the middle of the run.
Right,
like,
it's not like you can be, like, running at full speed and looking at the watch at the same time.
So the rower helps me with that. But you're right. Like, you know, speaking something to existence is the best way to keep you accountable. And I think that's you know, in addition to being a part of the community with like an Instagram account, like, I would encourage other members to, like, to share. You know, to share their workouts or start their own, like, Instagram account, because that'll help you stay accountable with your goals, and to keep you consistent in addition to being part of this awesome community.
The last thing I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned, and I can't remember the timing of this, that you had a high cholesterol scare, and then you changed your nutrition.
Yeah.
Nutrition is obviously one that people struggle with, even when they find consistency in their workouts, that they still struggle with nutrition. So what happened with that story?
So I have a family history of high cholesterol, and my doctor a few years ago told me that he recommended that I start taking medication for it, and he told me that you're really young. I wouldn't normally recommend like a 34, 35-year-old taking.
And this is when you were already doing
and
all the fitness stuff.
I wasn't eating unhealthily, I would say. I was I had hopped onto a paleo bandwagon. So it wasn't about like eating vegetables and protein and anything. And so I was like, well, give me a year. I'll try to change my diet more because, I also, I don't drink, but I really enjoy desserts. And so like I was like, okay, I'll eat like less slices of cake and less ice cream and less cookies.
How much cake were you eating?
A lot.
Like daily?
No. Like I've always been good at keeping nutrition on point during the week, and then
so it was
let
a weekend
the weekend
thing.
go.
Okay.
So,
that's very common.
but then it'd be like pizza and burgers. And ice
that
cream
whole
and,
cycle is very common, and people have a struggle to lose weight or hit their goals or whatever, and they're like, but I'm all week long, I prep all my meals, and they just don't account for how much the weekend can impact.
Yeah. So I came back the next year, and I think the numbers were a little bit worse. And he was like, I was like, we should really, So then it's like, well, like it might not even be like your fault, right? It could just be like you have high cholesterol, like genetically.
Yeah.
So I was like, I really think that I can do it on my own. I don't want to take pills to solve the problem. I want to see if I can change it some other way. So I bought a street parking template, which is a bit overwhelming at first, but I was like, I can do this smart and efficiently. And I think for me the initial, initially it's like it feels like it's a lot of work and a lot of.
It is a lot of work at first, and I think we can be honest about that and let people expect that. Because it's learning something new.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's not that hard. Right?
No, once you get the hang of it, it's like, oh, this is.
Yeah, and so I've settled into a routine with that now. So I focused. I was like, where can I do it cost effectively? Where can I get the most bang for my buck in terms of like how to fit all of the elements? And then how can I eat this much protein without my cholesterol being like crazy, right? And so, for me, if I ate eggs, I'd be eating like half a dozen eggs.
Yeah, because you're a big guy.
Every day.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't do that if I want to lower my cholesterol. So I eat a lot of turkey and chicken and Greek yogurt. Those are primarily what my meats are during the day. And then, I kind of looked at, the volume is a lot. So I was like, well, how do I cut down on the volume so I don't feel like I'm eating a ton all the time? So I looked at which of the foods had the lowest weight for what the serving was, right? And so
I could see you just like doing this, like you're like investigating
very mathematical
an investment.
Yeah. So I did that.
Spreadsheets and stuff.
Yeah. So you can do it and not eat a ton of food feel like you're eating a ton of food. And the other thing is I wanted to make it easy for myself. So I don't really even cook anything. I'll roast some broccoli for like the entire week. I'll cook some rice for the entire week. But for the most part, everything I just assemble and eat like kind of right then and there. And so I do some dried fruits. I do a bunch of nuts. I eat raw green beans, like raw carrots, stuff like that. Just because preparing it's easier. I don't have a lot of time, and so I've just gotten to this ritual, and it's like I'm boring, and maybe it's because
I'm boring with food too.
I eat the same thing for every meal every day.
I could do that forever.
Forever. And
If I didn't have like a family, I would just.
Yeah, and so that's where I stay consistent, is that during the week, I am not on the same schedule as the kids.
So
or
you're
my
just,
wife.
you can be
So
boring on your own.
I can be boring on my own. And on the weekends, I try to be boring when I can be.
Right.
But also, like, the way that I've always looked at it is, if I can be good that 70 to 90% of the time, then I can be bad that 20 to 30% of the time.
Right.
And, as long as I'm not really bad in that 20 to 30%, then it should be fine. But like that, being good for that 70 to 9% should afford me the flexibility to eat what I want when I can.
Right.
So like going to like a barbecue at the in-laws, like, I can. There's nothing wrong with having like a cheeseburger and some French fries. And
how is the cholesterol now?
So I got down. So the thing that really made me want to keep going down this path was life insurance. So after our third kid was born, realizing that to take the physical to for life insurance, you'd have to pay a lower premium for being in the toppest
shape. It's cheaper to be fit.
Cheaper to be fit, right? So
it really is, though.
So I was really worried about that, and when I had my physical for that, which was about 6 to 9 months after I started on the template, it had come down quite a bit.
Wow.
And this happened to be during the pandemic, so I hadn't gone to the doctor at all, but I did let him know. And he was like, great, like, see you in 6 to 9 months, like hopefully when things are settled down a little bit more. And so I went back to him post-pandemic. So it was actually like a 2-year period that I was on my own. And everything was like in the green, right? It wasn't even like a red flag anymore. And he was like, this is great, like, don't even have to be concerned about like medicine, like keep it up, like we'll check in next year. And so like that's just like the confirmation to me that that I'm doing
that's
something
awesome.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I think so many people are really going to love this episode, especially, we always joke about how at first street parking for the first few years was like, oh, that's like the Moms with Dumbbells program. But we have some really incredible men in our community. And I mean, you guys have such a strong group that pushes and encourages each other. And I see you guys, and I see it getting bigger too. Yeah. And I think it's because of people like you and Rich and Brad and that whole group that are just bringing people in and showing like, hey, like, you can do this at home, you can do this with kids, you can still be really super fit, and we're not going to care so much about like who's beating who and this and that, aside from fun stuff I'm sure that you guys talk about from time to time, but it's more like an encouraging than a competitive.
Yeah, I think it takes, there's less like machismo,
Yeah, there's less ego.
Yeah, there's less ego, so it's like you don't have to be the alpha male in the gym, right? You can, like, that's not why we're doing it.
Yes.
Right? There's, like, who cares if you're doing the extra challenge or not?
Right.
Like, you should be doing what you should be doing to maximize your fitness level, right?
Yes.
So, like, don't gyp yourself by doing a workout that is well within your means. If you know that you can tackle on something greater, because that's only hurting yourself. It's not doing anything to better yourself.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited to hear how your workout goes. You're going to go do it pretty much right now.
Yeah.
Good luck, and make sure you guys check it out. When it comes out, it'll be out in a few days.